Nick Caserio, formerly of New England's front office, now in Houston, with one heck of a situation, and that is clearly understating what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Is his plan really, do you think, to just hold on to the situation, just hold on as long as possible, hope that, they get through the draft season with Watson not saying anything publicly and upsetting any apple cart, and then hoping that when the Texans have mandatory events and that Watson shows up, and that if he does not hold the management to account for forcing him between his team and his money, or his I guess self-worth and his money, between his principles and his money, and actually start playing football for the Texans, for David Culley, like nothing ever happened? Is that really what the plan is going to be?
Well,
Michael?
Obviously there has to be some form of resolution, and someone needs to correct the reason Deshaun is so upset. Now, we do know this for a fact, that last August he stayed awake till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a check that was written by Cal McNair that had already had DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Cardinals, cash. And he was happy to sign an extension with a no-trade clause in that extension. So something has transpired over the last 7 months. I'm not privy to what that is, but if I'm Nick Caserio, I'm going to hold tight. I'm not going to allow my best quarterback, a player that I built the team around, who I gave a lot of money to as an organization, to deter me. A lot of players are unhappy. I've seen this over my 35-year career in the NFL. Players are unhappy. But players play football. They have to come back and play. And the rules, whatever we read about in the media, whatever the spin that comes from the agents of Watson, the rules favor the Texans. Because once he starts missing games, once he starts missing practices and all that signing bonus money has to come back. And you could say, well, that's not a way to handle your best player. Well, I think that's the way to send a message to everybody that you're not going to be bullied into trading. And you've got to take that approach, and you have to take the approach that if he doesn't show up, he'll pay us back the money. It would be like if we had to replace him in the game because he was injured. We just have to move on. You can't let the outside media dictate to what you do, Rich, and that's not going to be a popular voice to hear for Nick, but he's got to do that, because if not, he will have problems throughout his team.
Well, I know, but he's going to have Look, Michael, I mean, you're an old school guy. I've got a lot of the old school in me, but you're also well aware of the world. And right there in Houston, I know it's a different sport. You're seeing NBA players get what they want, despite signing long-term contracts. And the NFL, you saw, obviously J.J. Watt get released and just walk out the door. And I understand he's got more time in Houston, and he also was at a different spot of his career and contract and what have you. But this is a 21st century, and if Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play for the team anymore, well, because Casario's got more problems than he thinks he does have, because if he's not coming back to play for the Texans, and I don't know if the old way of looking at things is truly going to work in 2021, Michael, to be honest.
Look, basketball are a different sport, and I think that one player in basketball can change. But I also go back to the greatest coach of all time, Don Shula, had Dan Marino. And Dan Marino went to the Super Bowl his second year in the National Football League, Rich. And then from the time Dan Marino turned 24 until the time Dan Marino turned 29, the Miami Dolphins, with the greatest coach and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, didn't make the playoffs. So football is a team sport. It takes more than just a great quarterback. And so, we've seen this before. In his 12-year career with the Indianapolis Colts, Peyton Manning went to 3 conference championship games. He went to 2 Super Bowls. I think that's a little light for how talented Peyton Manning was. I think they should have gotten more out of his unique ability. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. 1 Super Bowl win, 1 Super Bowl appearance. I think that's a little light for how great he is. So my point here is it takes a team. And I think that if the team isn't good enough around Deshaun Watson, the team's not going to win, which happened last year. They're trying to make the team better. It's a team sport. Basketball is very individualistic. It's only 5, 6, 7 players. They have a better system in terms of how they control. I think if you're Nick Caserio, you've got to do because you're not going to be able to replace him for what's out there. It's the same thing in Seattle. How do you replace Russell Wilson? How do you get a player back? You know, that when the Bears traded for Jay Cutler, they got Jay Cutler, and Denver got Kyle Orton and a bunch of draft picks. It really didn't work out for Denver that way. So I think you have to be really careful if the right deal comes along. But I think teams are a little bit concerned about trading a boatload of picks for one player when that one player couldn't win games for Houston last year. It takes more than one player, is my point.
No, I hear you, and I guess last one to push on this subject is, you know, when one team can offer you a 23-year-old quarterback back in Tua or Sam Darnold, and I understand that's not Deshaun Watson, but when they can offer you that, as well as a top 5 pick, including in the case of Miami, your own number 1 overall pick back at 3rd overall, and other first-round picks over the next couple of years as the Jets and the Dolphins can also amass their choices to send. Isn't that better than this holdout alternative for the Texans? You can actually get right. You can actually
but the problem,
back.
Rich, is he controls where he wants to go. The rumor is he doesn't want to play in New York. The rumor is he doesn't want to play in Miami. He wants to play in Denver and San Francisco. So now you're Nick Caserio, and now your trade options are limited, especially when you know he controls where he says he wants to go. So say he says, I only want to go to San Francisco. I'll only go to San Francisco. Well, now San Francisco has all the leverage in the trade. So all the trade scenarios you go through, if he doesn't want to go to the Jets, he says, I'm not going. So it's fool's gold to get that pick. I can't make that deal happen.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.